Welcome back inside the Kentucky Derby. We're almost to Kentucky Derby 150 into the championship series. It's hard to imagine that the championship series is right around the corner, but a pivotal weekend is ahead of us here on the road to the Kentucky Derby, where 4 prep races worth 20 points each to the winner. Shall the winner remain eligible? We'll get to that in a little bit. We got the Withers in New York at Aqueduct. We got the Holy Bull down in Florida with the return of Fierceness, the rescheduled Southwest, and then the Bob Lewis out in California. It's going to be a fun weekend, and we're here to talk about all 4 races and much more. What else can we talk about? We can talk about lots today, Darren, on this show. This could be a 40-minute show. I got a feeling we can talk today.
We can cover some ground here. So much going on here at the Downs. We've got we had the Derby 150 special trophy arrive early in the week, adorned with some extra jewels, a lot of rubies, a lot of emeralds. It's a gorgeous trophy for Derby 150. That'll be making public appearances. We've got Derby week and spring meet tickets already on sale. They go on sale. They're on sale now. And, previously, you only had the Oaks and the Derby tickets available. There's limited inventory left because the demand is so high this year. So now you can get your opening night, your 5-0 Tuesday, the Champions Day on Wednesday, plus Derby tickets. Then, of course, throughout the spring meet, big days like, the Downs After Dark, and then the Stephen Foster Preview Day and Stephen Foster itself. Great time to be alive here at the Downs.
And what's great about Derby week, so, if you're not coming Oaks or Derby Day and you want to come experience what Derby week is like, the other days that we are running, starting on opening night, Saturday, April the 27th, you really get a feel of what, the Derby will be like. There's people dressed to the nines. They're wearing their hats. So even if they're not here on Oaks or Derby days, those other days preceding it, there's really some special events those days, and you get a feel of what Derby will be like.
Look, Oaks Derby pricing meets the demand, right? And the demand is really high. And that pricing and those price points aren't available to everybody. I mean, let's face it. But the amazing new spaces here around the Downs, from the first turn that debuted a year ago to the new $200 million paddock that will be unveiled on Derby week. There's some great rail boxes. There's premium dining there. There's Loge dining tables. Anyway, the pricing on that for Oaks and Derby is obviously high. Mm-hmm. The demand is there. You can get those same amenities on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Derby at a much more affordable price point. So just log on to KentuckyDerby.com, log on to ChurchillDowns.com, click on tickets, or look at the Derby week events, and you'll be able to see those different price points. So if you're headed out here to the 502, we hope to see you.
I like 50 Tuesday. It still has a great ring. I love that new addition to Derby week starting last year. All the local businesses. I mean, I never realized when I first moved here to Kentucky, how much, the local scene was for so many people. It's so many, like, Louisville is just, you're not a Louisvillian by nature, but it's just ingrained in so much of the culture from, everyone. If you move away for college and you come back here to Louisville, it's, just ingrained in the culture. And, where'd you go to high school? You remember the,
Look, my favorite thing is whenever somebody gives directions around town, it's always you head this way and they describe something. You remember where something used to be.
Yeah.
It's always where something used to be.
I did that the other day. I mean, I've been here 12 years. I said, remember where, the Phoenix Hill Tavern used to be?
Yeah.
And it's, it's not there anymore. And, but that's the mindset of a lot of Louisvillians. And so we celebrate that on 50 Tuesday. It's a cool day on Derby week. Anyway, let's talk about this road to the Derby this weekend.
Should we talk about, look, I'm just wondering since our last podcast, we saw some other performances that are not from points races for 3-year-olds, but there were some performances worth noting.
Yeah, let's start that off the top.
So we kind of teased last week some of the races you could keep your eye on. We mentioned the Brad Cox debut of Just a Touch, going 6 furlongs. The son of Justify, not surprisingly, was bet down to the 1-2 favorite. And he showed up, won by 4 1/4 lengths. Is this too little, too late, or do you think this horse can make some noise on the trail?
I mean, the way that he won, it was just very convincing. It's just asking a lot of a horse at this stage who's, behind the 8 ball of some of the other experienced horses that we'll see this weekend in these major prep races. Going 6 furlongs on your debut is asking a lot to then go to a 1 1/8, say, in a Road to the Derby, Championship Series race next time out, where there's so many other experienced horses. Is he a freak like his sire Justify? That's yet to be seen. I bet he might get one shot. And if he can, prove to Brad Cox that, he's worthwhile to go in the Kentucky Derby. And that's the whole thing, right? You have horses like this. You'll have some horses that are in maiden races this weekend where, they're behind, schedule a little bit from the other horses that have, shown some form and have won races already. And the Derby isn't for everyone. And there's so many big races throughout the rest of the year where, the trainers are campaigning for. And, I would love to see a horse like this in the Derby because I know a couple of people that got down on him at a big number in some of the sports books out in Vegas. But, we'll have to wait and see if he can, earn his spot there. I would think maybe a 1X and then maybe the Bluegrass or something like that would be in his cards.
I think that would be the plan. Probably an allowance race and then take your one shot. You'd have 3 starts under your belt. See what the competition's like on the first Saturday in May. Another horse that really ran huge was down at Gulfstream Park. Speakeasy for Todd Pletcher. Debuted and won at 8-1, going 7 furlongs, winning by a length and 3/4. This is a son of Constitution out of the Harlan's Holiday Mare Fun.
Yeah, and I think that was a field of maybe 10 or 11 after scratches that day. And that was the same maiden race that Mage won last year to, vault him into the Road to the Derby scene. And I think I heard maybe about 9 of the 11 horses, maybe the trainers liked their horse and thought they had a shot to win. And so that's why you see 8-1 on a Todd Pletcher horse that, ran fast, won impressively, will be on the Road to the Derby, I would think, next time out. And maybe he'll take the same pathway as Mage did to win last year's Kentucky Derby 149.
Another impressive maiden winner in the second start was for Christophe Clement, who all of a sudden has
he's a dirt trainer.
I mean, he's got a trio of horses that merit conversation. Otello, of course, running in the Holy Bull down at Gulfstream. You've got Ari's Magic on the undercard and a first level allowance, and Capital Ideal, a one on last Sunday. This is a son of Classic Empire out of a Distorted Humor mare, won by 8 1/4 lengths, going a mile up at Aqueduct. We'll have to see if he joins in on the trail.
Yeah, ran against probably some of his friends up there. And then we're going to, also see some of these horses that, have won these maiden races if their connections are really thinking seriously of the Triple Crown when the Triple Crown nominations have closed this past Monday, and then they'll be released early next week. So we'll really get an idea if these maiden winners that we're seeing maybe this weekend or last weekend are going to have their shot at running in the Derby or any of the other 2 Triple Crown races.
Also at Aqueduct, just worth mentioning, Bergen got back on track, going 6 furlongs in the mud, won the Jimmy Winkfield by 5 1/4 lengths. That was after a turn back from a mile after he ran second to Houday at Churchill Downs on closing weekend. We'll just have to wait and see. Does he stick to sprints and target the Pat Day mile, or does he end up jumping into the picture of the Road to the Derby at some point down the road? Couple of other notes. Let's see. Oh, we're recording this on Thursday, right around noon. And we can tell you yesterday at Gulfstream Park, Tuscan Gold was an impressive winner for Chad Brown, winning by 6 1/4 lengths. That was his second lifetime start. Going a mile and a 16th and won by 6 1/4 lengths. A son of Medaglia d'Oro out of a Curlin mare. And, I think this horse will make some noise as well.
Yeah, I don't know how strong that race was, but definitely visually was impressive. And the pedigree says, no problem with going even further than the mile and 16th yesterday. On the Road to the Derby that we saw, one of the favorites that I think we both liked, Parchment Party, is off the trail now, having some growing pains, and that's a normal thing, has been sent home to the farm, and we'll hopefully have a big summer campaign into the fall for this later this year. But bummer to see his name not on the road to the Derby.
Yeah, he was very promising. The other horse for Bill Mott that won impressively at the fall meet, Knightsbridge. He does have a couple of works under his belt. He's a little behind the 8 ball, but he does have a couple of breezes. We'll see if he makes his turn. I mean, he won his maiden at Churchill on November the 4th by 10.5 lengths. This is a son of Nyquist that I'm very excited about, but the Derby might be a little too early for his timeline.
Yeah, I think I saw maybe he's trying to get him, fully back on track for a March prep race. So, maybe he'll be, one of those one shots if he, does well. Maybe the Louisiana Derby. Bill always likes to send horses to Louisiana for the race, so maybe that'll be on his target range.
Look, I like to preface this at this time of year annually because we are recording this on February the 1st. And at this point in stage, for the most part, most of these horses have gone 1 1/16, 8.5 furlongs. Huge difference going from 8.5 furlongs to 10 furlongs on the first Saturday in May. So as a handicapper, when you watch these horses and when you see something like a Knightsbridge, who won his debut going 7/8 of a mile, we think he's promising. We don't know what can he be as dynamic at 8 furlongs, at 8.5, let alone 10. So even the champions of the world, hats off to Fierceness, who was named champion last Thursday, the champion 2-year-old, he was absolutely dynamic going 1 1/16 as a 2-year-old winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So the questions are, and we're going to see all these races this coming weekend, basically 1 mile to 1 1/16. We're whoever wins, somebody's going to put a wow performance. We're going to drop our jaws, but remember, always ask yourself, can they be as dynamic going 9 furlongs or 10?
Right.
And that's for everybody to answer themselves.
It's a great February puzzle, and will be great to see in the next, 40 days if they can repeat that again when the distances get a little bit further closer to the first Saturday in May.
Where are we going?
Let's start. You want to start with the Fierceness return
sure.
Down at Gulfstream? I feel like that's the big elephant in the room because he's obviously the talk of the town, being the champion 2-year-old that he was crowned last week at the Eclipse Awards. He makes his 2024 debut against 7 rivals here in the Holy Bull, 1 1/16, grade 3, a $250,000 race. So no knock there. 20 points to the winner in this race, and Fierceness, heavy favorite in this race. You want to go from the rail out and we'll get to Fierceness, or you want to talk to Fierceness?
Yeah. We can go from the rail out.
Let's go. Let's start with Hades, who's drawing the rail for Paco Lopez, Joe Orseno. This horse is 2 for 2 locally at Gulfstream to start his career. A Florida bred, but I think the semblance is will need to get faster, but could be a pace presence from breaking down on that inside.
Yeah, my concerns are he's a Florida bred, son of Awesome Slew. The average sire winning distance is 6.6 furlongs. They're taking their shot. DJ Stable is often keen to be a part of the road to the Kentucky Derby. Up against it, has to get much faster. Probably is going to, sit in the second flight of horses in this race.
We'll talk for a couple of horses in this race about the Mucho Macho Man Stakes last time, and that's where in Vegold, who draws the 2-hole for Jane Sibeli, Irad Ortiz, will break from there. And I think we both, sort of thought the Mucho Macho Man isn't going to translate maybe into a horse that'll be, as impressive on the road to the Kentucky Derby in the Holy Bull, or even further into the Florida Derby. This horse ran okay in that race, but is again going to need to make a big step up in class to be competitive, I think, going as 1 1/16, and even if the distances get further.
You don't see many Indiana breds down in South Florida. And you do get the services of a Red Ortiz Jr., so that's a positive sign. Again, this horse needs to get much faster. Probably going to go out there and maybe help vie for the lead with fierceness. Maybe this is the horse that puts pressure on him from down on the inside, but I think he's, needs to take a massive leap forward to be a part of the Road to the Derby conversation.
Otello's undefeated for Christophe Clement, 1 star in Siena, who won that Mucho Macho Man last time out. This will be a true acid test to see, where he sort of fits, I think, in this whole 3-year-old picture. The pedigree is sort of there that he can stretch out and go a little bit longer, but he does need to make another leap forward. And he's run 2 okay races, I thought, to start off his career, but just has to run even better now as the competition gets even more fierce.
I would agree, KK, and he's going to be near the back of the pack, much like he was last time in the Mucho Macho Man. And so whenever you're making, decisions or room to come from the back of the pack, you have to have a little luck. He waited on the inside last time out, split horses at about the 8th pole, got up to win by a half length. A very professional win. Again, has to get much faster to compete with the likes of fierceness, but a promising colt that's going to need a little racing luck as Luis Saez tries to work out a trip.
I was excited when Dancing Groom shipped here to Churchill for the Kentucky Jockey Club for the Antonio Sano camp, and then just didn't run well at all that day. I mean, they're adding blinkers in this start. Maybe that could be a difference, but again, he hasn't shown enough to me that, he deserves to be in this picture as of this stage. Will the blinkers improve him 20 lengths? I don't know. That's asking a lot, but is a notable equipment change for this race.
When I go into this race, as I'm about to cough,
there it is.
By the way, I went to the Derby Museum earlier today and was greeted by one of the lovely workers over there who is an avid listener of the podcast. She loves the cough.
Oh, that's not a good thing to like.
I know, right? So there it is. It's resonating with folks. So as I was trying to say, if I'm trying to find someone other than fierceness who is Mr. Obvious in this race, like who do you like second best? Otello's probably the second choice. We don't have morning line odds just yet, but that's how I see it. Probably going to take some action. I'm like you, KK. I'm always intrigued by Antonio Sano horses. He's an under the radar trainer. He's very good. First time blinkers, 21%. He's adding the blinkers for a little more focus. This horse on paper looks like he'd rate kind of towards the rear of this field, but I'm curious, will Junior Alvarado have him a little more forwardly placed with the blinkers? He's got to be a big price. I like the breeding. He faced, grade 1 and grade 2 competition. I just don't like that Mucho Macho Man field as much. So I think I'm looking for a price to who can run second. And I lean towards maybe a Dancing Groom.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way about this race. It's like who's a new shooter?
Who's the second best horse of the race?
Yeah.
I really don't think there's a clear cut horse.
No, I agree. No More Time, and Iowa bred. We had Indiana breds, we have Florida breds, we have Kentucky breds. We got an Iowa bred and No More Time for Jose D'Angelo, who is, I believe, did I read that right? He's scratching out of this race. I'm gonna do a live.
Well, I'll let you do that either way. If he does or doesn't. Last time out, he was very rank. He hopped at the start. So if you're looking for a reason to, forgive that last performance, because he did win his maiden impressively at Gulfstream last October, maybe that's a reason to do it.
Yeah, I agree. No More Time goes to the Sam Davis, so out of this race, and goes to next week's Sam F. Davis,
which is typically a softer spot. Although when I look at this field for the Holy Bull, it's fierceness and everybody else.
Yeah, so you can get 10 points for running second.
Yeah.
Anyway, domestic product for Klarovich. Chad Brown takes the blinkers off after running in the Remsen last time out, first start of his 3-year-old year. This is one of the new shooters that I was sort of interested in. He broke his maiden going the 1 1/8, so clearly no issues there. Practical Joke by a painter mare. Maybe this horse has found some maturity over the last few weeks of him not being in action. that he can take a step forward and round out the exacta.
He's a Chad Brown trained horse, so he's going to take a lot of money. Tyler Gaffalione rides. Look, I don't have any knocks on this horse. Their last race was awful, right? But again, I'm willing to forgive. But am I willing to forgive at a shorter price than he probably should be? Domestic Product will take some money in here, and I'm gonna pass. This horse was 113-1 in Pool 2 of the Kentucky Derby Future Wager.
All right, so now we moved on to Fierceness, who breaks from post number 7, and let's phrase it this way. So, barring anything crazy happening, at the break or something like that, how does Fierceness lose this race?
Wow. How does Fierceness lose? You stumble at the start. You run goofy and in spots, much like he did in the Champagne. Maybe there's I don't think the off track was a factor because he broke his maiden in the mud. The sloppy track of the Champagne going a mile. It was just he lunged at the start. I mean, that's how he loses. And by the way, that's very easy to happen in horse racing.
Mm-hmm.
Something can occur at the start. Now, if it doesn't, if he breaks on top, he's forwardly placed like he should be. Look, he's going to roll against this field. I'm very keen to see Todd Pletcher, who is very generic in giving quotes for the most part, has really spoken glowingly about Fierceness and his development from age 2 to 3. So let's see it. Let's see it on paper. And again, it's on the track rather than on paper. And again, this is a mile and 16, so we know that distance is well within his scope. I want to continue to see him as the distances get longer. I have no reason to not think that he can't go long or longer the 1.25 mile distance. City of Light out of a Stay Thirsty mare known as Bella. The Stay Thirsty's average winning distance is 6.7 furlongs.
That's sort of,
but I still think of him as a distance horse.
I think that's an asterisk because first crop sire, right?
Yeah.
All those races are shorter right now.
Correct.
So kind of have to look at that as
I have no knocks. Look, I think the only way he gets beat is if something happens at the start.
The one thing that I looked at this race and with him is, so if he doesn't make the lead, it's a short run into that first turn going a mile and a 16th at Gulfstream, very short run. And he has the benefit, even though he's drawn to the outside, that this isn't, a field of 12, right? He's in post 7 of 8. There are a couple of horses to his inside that could show some early speed into that turn. So he could get caught wide. If he breaks a little slow, he could get caught behind those horses. But as his races show,
he could be 10 wide in a 7-horse field, and I think he wins this race.
That's what I was going to say. I think he can be wide in this field.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, if he breaks slow and is behind those horses, getting kicked back in his face into that turn. But
I think the better question is, are you getting 1 to 9 or 1 to 5?
Yeah, right. Anyway, so that's how we could think Fierceness could lose, but he is definitely in our mind, my mind, Darren's mind, the horse to beat.
How do you follow Fierceness with C Streak?
Eddie Owens.
We have a Jersey bred gelding out of Sea Wizard.
I love Jersey.
Hey, look, the horse ran credible in the Mucho Macho Man, but again, that race, hasn't been the strongest race in years, and I don't see this race being that productive either.
So if you're gambling on Twin Spires, I'm going to play an exacta. I'm going to play Fierceness over Domestic Product and then just move on from there. How would you bet the race? Would you bet an exacta like that? Would you?
I might try Dancing Groom underneath if he's a big enough price. I may just watch this race.
Yeah.
If anything, it's a fabulous card at Gulfstream Park, so I'll take the free square in the multi-race wagers.
Absolutely. So the Holy Bull goes as the 12th race Saturday,
along with the rest of North America.
Yes.
All right.
Race 12, 5:48 Eastern time for the Holy Bull on Saturday. Can watch the action on twinspires.com. Lots of ways to watch that race. Let's go to Aqueduct. Let's go to the Withers up there, where I think New York is crying out for a favorite on this year's Road to the Derby after the defection of Drumroll Please, who look to be, top of the class for the horses based in New York this winter. So this is a very equally matched field. Goes as race number 9, a mile and 1/8 in the Withers, and Speed Runner, a Todd Pletcher trainee, is based at Belmont. Just broke his maiden last time out for the Whisper Hill Farms. Will kick off this field breaking from the rail. A son of Gun Runner, should have no issues at the mile and 1/8 because that's how he broke his maiden last time out, going a mile and 1/8.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said about, New York kind of searching for their favorite. I kind of like some new shooters in here coming from other circuits, but I think we're going to get a fast pace with the Withers, and Speed Runner is the type of horse that shows some forwardness on paper last time out, but I could see this horse sitting, relaxing, tucking in behind some of the other speed, maybe racing mid-pack. The mile and 1/8 is not going to be a problem, as you said, winning last time out, but definitely one to respect.
Absolutely. Number 2 is Deposition. Uriah St. Louis sends this horse in from his Parks base. Uriah is one of the trainers that owns every horse that he trains, so he has multi-action, both as a trainer side and the owner side. This horse needs to make a big jump up in both speed figures wise and his class level that he's been facing. It does add blinkers, as a very quick work at Parks in his last work, could maybe show some more forward pace in this race.
Yeah, I agree. I think he could. He'd be sitting a little mid-pack. Look, he broke his maiden going a mile and 70 yards at Parks, came back and ran in the 7 furlong heft at Laurel and was last of 7. This is going to be a big long shot in here, big step up. He's going to have to run back to his maiden and then get faster on top of that to compete.
Asking a lot, but crazier things have happened. Lightline, I'm very intrigued with in this race, who's owned by the Alball family stables, a Brad Cox trainee, ran off the screen on debut at Horseshoe Indianapolis, and then just has sort of been second fiddle to both Stretch Ride at Keeneland, who I think is a very nice 3-year-old colt, and then Carbone, who we'll see in the Southwest in his last start. I think this is a good move, sending this horse up to Aqueduct to sort of find some new friends. I think this will really could give him a confidence boost should he jump forward in this race, because I think there's some stiffer competition at his base down either at Oaklawn or Fairgrounds, and I think this is a very good spot for him here in the Withers.
I agree, KK. I think this is an outstanding move by the camp, Brad Cox and the Albaugh family stables, shipping this horse up to, as you said, the friendly confines of the Big A, because the competition is a little less fierce in the Northeast this time of year. Brad Cox knows what he's doing. He gets Manny Franco to ride. The horse, look, it's not like he's been awful. I mean, this horse, the horse breaks his maiden at Indiana Grand by 13 lengths. He comes back and he runs second to an impressive Stretch Ride, and then comes back and runs second, beaten 4 lengths by Carbone, who's, been dominant in 2 starts for Steve Asmussen, the Matoli colt. So this is a good spot for Lightline. He's shown early speed, even though he came from out of it last time. So the question is, what is he going to do? Is he going to race in mid-pack? Does he tuck in, go in the mile and an 1/8 distance? I do like the chances of this colt, the son of City of Light, out of the Maria's Mon mare. This is a good spot. This is my top choice.
Yeah, they paid $600,000 for him at the 2022 Keeneland September sale. Definitely thought highly of him from very early on, and I think this could be his spot to shine. El Grande O ran second in the Jerome to Drumroll Please. I think is probably maybe better going a mile. This is going to be a tough task, I think, going a mile and 1/8, but has shown up in most of his races. He's only been off the board once, only been out of second place twice. So he's always showing up, just asking a lot, I think, going a mile and 1/8.
Hey, we're going to find out what he's made of. He's going to be on the lead, much like he's been in his recent starts for Linda Rice. You go from the mile to a mile and 1/8. It's a question of does he keep going or does he stop? I'm going to go with probably going to fade a little bit. But what you see is what you get with El Grandio. If you're handicapping him, it's just a question. Do you believe the horse can go 9 furlongs, or is he a miler? And I lean towards he's closer to a miler.
Yeah. A new shooter to the scene is the 5 Seminole Chief, who I thought, again, sort of like Lightline. I like the decision for the team to come from their base down at Palm Meadows in South Florida to this spot. Brad Grady, a co-owner of this horse, also owned his sire, Gervin, Florida bred. And, I think this horse will be closer to the pace, and I think that's going to suit him well, going 1 1/8, went 1 16th last time out in a restricted stake down at Gulfstream last time out. Not really respected in the betting the last few starts, but I think he sits a better trip here in the Withers, and maybe could be, if you're looking for a new shooter, he could maybe one that could jump into the mix.
He beat Ben Tornado, who was very impressive going shorter distances down in South Florida in that Florida Stallion Sire Series down there. And like you said, he beat him by a half length, plus going a mile and a 16th. This is a right spot to try and stretch him out. The competition is going to be less stiff. I just have a tough time seeing a son of Gervin going 9 furlongs, but strange things could happen.
Yeah. What about a tough time seeing a maiden win the Withers? Number 6 is Society Man, Isaac Castillo, Danny Gargan. Gargan, of course, trains Dornoch. This is a horse who just is 0 for 2 lifetime and thrown right into the wolves here in the Withers.
Taking the shot, right? I believe it's the same ownership group as well as Dornoch. So look, they're taking a shot in here. He's going to have to get faster to win, but I don't have much to offer other than that.
Yeah. Let's go to Mission Beach. Brittany Russell now trains the horse, was conditioned in the West Coast from Bob Baffert, shipped over to the Brittany's barn in November, since competed down at Laurel in a 2 other than, or 1 other than allowance race, won that race down there, and now comes up here to the Withers. I think still needs to step up in class, and also trying to step up going 2 turns, but the pedigree says can go just fine in this 1 1/8.
Yeah, it's funny. You don't see many races where you go from, 6 to 9 furlongs. So it's 3 additional furlongs. This is the ownership group that has all their horses with Baffert. They made a switch early on, which tells me that, after that Bob Hope race, let's make room for other horses in the barn.
Yeah.
I need the stall space. So they transferred the horse to Brittany Russell, who is a fabulous trainer up there in the Northeast, especially in Maryland. I can't see this horse taking that step forward. I expect him to, be in the early pace scenario, probably will be a little closer up, going the route of ground. But the horse is going to have to keep on going. And like you said, there is breeding there, but man, that's a stretch for me.
Yeah, I agree. Another one that's giving it a shot, and the worst that can happen is they go back to PA bred at Parks, and that's Uncle Heavy. Butch Reed trains and is a Parks-based trainer. We'll van the horse up to New York. Michael Sanchez, who's based at Parks, is named to ride, who's ridden this horse in all 3 starts. Ran in the PA Nursery Stakes, just sort of didn't run well that day, and then ran in another state-bred stake down at Parks, going 1 70. One, I thought, okay that day, but going 1 70 to 1 1/8 is still a step up in class, and especially jumping into open company here in the Withers. Just needs to get a little faster and a little better, but taking a shot, and I like that.
I'm a fan of this horse. This is one of the new faces that I'm actually going to take a little bit of a chance with. I like Lightline best, but Uncle Heavy is a horse that I might include in the mix underneath. This is a horse that seems to be improving. I love Butch Reed. Butch Reed is a underrated trainer when he puts these horses on the road to the Kentucky Derby. They're often very competitive. So he's taking a shot. He knows the competition is not that stiff. This is the right spot for this horse to take that chance, and I'll take a chance with him.
I wonder who this horse is named after. Who is Uncle Heavy? I wonder if
It could be. I don't know if he knows me, but I'd be a candidate.
I like that. And then breaking from the far outside is Kanate, another Todd Pletcher trainee. He has the inside and the outside in this field.
Did you look up that pronunciation? Is that how they said it?
I have no idea how they say it.
Kanate? I don't know. I don't know myself.
I don't know.
I don't know how he's going to fare. Was well beaten, in the Jerome last time out. Son of Hightail. I think sprints. This horse looks to be more bred for sprinting, but as we've said before, Calumet Farm does like to participate.
Absolutely. So that's the Withers field of 9 in a nutshell. 355 Eastern time. I think Lightline is the horse to beat in here. I think I'll play, if I'm looking at 1-2.
Are you sucking up to Jason Luce now?
Oh, I have to. I really, I mean,
you've taken so many shots at his horses along the way.
I know. Here's the deal. I just keep jabbing them, and I've got to start to get back on the good side of the All-Ball camp. But I do think this is the right spot for this horse. So I'm taking this horse. I do think Seminole Chief is very intriguing to use as well.
Look, it'll be very interesting after this race to see what many of these horses do, because the next race in the series up in New York is the 1 mile Gotham. So you go from 9 furlongs to 1 mile. That's a little goofy. So the other races that same weekend, 4 weeks out, would be the Fountain of Youth. So you could see them get tested against stiffer competition down in South Florida, or maybe you take the other week and run in the March 9th Tampa Bay Derby. But other than the locally based horses, I have a tough time seeing the winner kind of turn back in distance.
Yeah, it's tough. The spacing wise for most of these tracks that we're talking about today, you're going to have 2 more preps, both, in 4 weeks from now for the most part. But it's just very odd in New York with the Gotham going, 1 mile and 1/8 to a mile. And then back to the 1 mile and 1/8 in the wood. So, we'll have to wait and see if anyone would go on with it or they wait for a different spot. Let's go out to the West Coast. Let's go to the Bob Lewis, which goes as the 5th race at Santa Anita, 5:15 Eastern time. And here, several horses in this race are trained by Bob Baffert. And as reported in the news earlier this week, that if he did not, or the owners of his horses did not transfer them by Monday's Triple Crown closing deadline, they're ineligible to garner points for the road to the Kentucky Derby. They can still nominate to the Triple Crown Series, but they're eligible for the Preakness and the Belmont. And no horses did make the transfer, so he's still going to compete in these races, a lot of his trainees, but they are just ineligible to garner points as they were earlier on in the Prep Series events. So, Nysos, the horse to beat in this race, as we've talked about multiple times on this show, probably one of the top horses based out in California. But breaking from the inside is his stablemate, Wind Me Up. I was a fan of this horse as a big long shot in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, did not run to par there, and then just ran okay, I thought, in the Los Al Futurity. It's going to make a big step up, and I think is a tough draw down at the rail to kick off the Bob Lewis field.
Yeah, you probably didn't want to draw the rail. He's going to be forward, but probably is not as fast as some others. So expect him maybe to rate or try to figure out how to get on the outside of horses at some point. I think there are others in this field that are faster.
Ace of Clubs, again, needs to make a step up in class after finishing 5th in the Los Al Futurity. But the Doug O'Neill camp is always game to try the road to the Kentucky Derby, and but just needs to get a little bit better as now the year turns for his first start as a 3-year-old.
It's really tough to, when you look at all the maiden races in California, they're dominated by Bob Baffert. He has a lot of the top horses out in the West Coast. Ace of Clubs is a horse that's just kind of filling out this field, right? I mean, he you said it. He's got to get much faster, take a step forward, maybe keep in mind, this is just a mile. Not a mile and a 16. So he's actually backing up in distance. It's a stretch for me to see Ace of Clubs in the picture.
Yeah, I don't think it's and I'll have another that Doug O'Neill trained. Better Than Gold for Gary Mandela broke his maiden at Del Mar on December the 2nd. Now steps up into the big fish here. I thought, it was pretty gutsy rallying off the pace, breaking his maiden that day, but it's a big step up here, but it's a good spot for him to step up. Just, needs to get faster to compete with some of the others in this race.
I love that last race. I really did. That was a very impressive race. beating Imagination and what was it? What was that third place horse? I know the second and the third place horses did come back to win. When you watch this race on tape, it's so visually impressive. The race did not come back that fast. He's going to have to continue to move forward. This is a good starting point for Better Than Gold. Gary Mandela, very solid horseman, coming up under the tutelage of his father, Richard. He's been a long time assistant to Richard. He knows a good horse when he sees. I think this horse is sneaky. He's very sneaky. He'll appreciate the distance of ground. The mile might just be a little short for this guy.
Yeah,
but I'm a fan of this horse, especially at a price.
If you were playing a drinking game with Woodford Reserve and I've said this horse needs to get faster, you're probably wasted by now. Because I think I've said that a lot for these horses in the first couple of races.
Well, we try to be kind, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
but they're facts.
Yeah.
I mean, we could come on here and say, look, he's too slow, but that's such an insult to the horse.
Yeah.
Right. He's got to get faster.
I'll look up on ChatGPT different ways I can say the horse needs to get faster, and I'll use different lines like that in the next podcast. Moonlight Sonata for Tim Yakteen. I think the distance is going to help this horse, Son of Malibu Moon, out of a Distorted Humor mare. I think it's going to be in his wheelhouse after going 6.5 and 7 furlongs in his first two starts, but needs to get better. There's a different line that needs to get faster, needs to get better than his effort in the San Vicente last time out against Muth, but maybe that was too short for him.
I have nothing further to add.
Next, Coach Prime. He was one that we thought was, all that in a bag of chips. And, we saw in the Los Al Futurity, he was pretty disappointing as the heavy favorite that day. Can he rebound? He takes the blinkers off. He's wore the blinkers in all three of his starts. He now takes them off here. I think he can rebound. What do you think?
There's a trio of Baffert horses in here, and I like Coach Prime the best. Coach Prime, I look, he was so disappointing last time out at 4-5 in the Los Alamitos Futurity, but that track has sometimes produced goofy results. I'm willing to give this horse a hall pass there. I think he'll appreciate the distance. The longer the distance is, the better for this horse. So he's actually backing up, a 16th of a mile, but down the road, I think Coach Prime is going to continue to get better as the distances get longer. So he'll be an interesting tote board watching type of horse for this race. Frankie Dettori taking over for Flavian Prat, who sticks with Nisos.
Yeah, who breaks to his outside. Nisos does, and on debut you got 6-1 on Nisos with when Kyle Frey rode him, and then the bettors caught on last time out and was 1-5 in the Bob Hope and won impressively, and I think the money will follow him in this race. But again, making his first start since early November. Bob doesn't have an issue with horses running off of a layoff. They're always fit and ready to go, but is a question mark of making his first start since early November, and this spot is a big favorite.
This is his first test around 2 turns, albeit it's only a mile, which might be within his scope. Many people I respect have thought this is a 1-turn horse. There are many others around the country who believe this is Baffert's best Derby horse. I think this horse is a lot closer to being a sprinter than he is a Derby horse. And obviously he's not a Derby horse because he's ineligible. But I suspect about this horse going long. So 1 mile is probably right in his wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be a problem. But with those question marks, that's why I'm leaning to a Coach Prime in here over a Nisos.
Yeah, that's
But look, this horse is uber fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what I said earlier on. The horse is unquestionably dynamic. He's dynamic going 6. He's dynamic going 7. Will he be as dynamic going 8+ down the road? I've got my doubts.
Yeah, I can see those doubts too, and especially as a big favorite against horses that may want to go a little bit further in this race. A horse that's been improving in every single start, who I'm a fan of, is Stronghold for the Phil D'Amato camp. And this horse was based here in Kentucky, shipped out west to D'Amato's string out in California. and is just in every single start, speed figures wise, just keeps improving and ran a solid race. I thought last time out in the low self-utility. Does add the blinkers maybe to try and get a little bit more focus, let Winstock beat him in that final, 16th of a mile in the low self-utility. But I'm a big fan of this horse, and if I'm picking a top pick in this race, Darren, this is my top pick to upset the apple cart.
I like that, KK. He's 204-1 in pool 3 of the Kentucky Derby future wager. If he's somehow able to jump up here, garner some points, anybody that bet on him would be smiling for a chance to get into the starting gate the first Saturday in May at a big score. Look, he's a very intriguing horse, not campaigned by Bob Baffert. I prefer Better Than Gold as, a horse that could step up and beat the big boys, but Stronghold has definitely been in the mix. My one concern, he's out of a Jimmy Creed mare.
Yeah, that's sprint,
sprint on the damn side, but he's given no indication after that effort at Los Alamitos that distances would be an issue.
And this is, still a mile. So maybe, as we get further down the road on the championship series on the road to the Derby, maybe he's sort of a bet against. But for me in this race, and I got some of that 200+1 in the future wager, so I'll be smiling if he can upset in this field. McVeigh for John Sheriffs is a maiden. Why not run here in the Bob Lewis when trainer Bob Baffert probably has a ton of maidens still in his barn running in maiden special weights out there? He's going to run against 3 of them here for, a bigger person, a maiden special weight. So if he can, run into the mix, he's going to make more money than he would in a maiden special weight.
It speaks volumes to me that John Sheriffs puts this horse in this spot because, like you said, he's a maiden. Maybe the distance maiden races aren't filling. Those races out in California, they're tough to go. And like you said, you're going to run against some Baffert trained monsters half the time. You're getting the mile distance. So John Sheriffs throws him in here. Doesn't get the greatest of posts, breaking from, post 8 of 9. The horse should be forward within this race, going 2 turns, I would think. And he'll be a big price, but respect John Sheriffs. That's all I would say. He's going to be a big price. I would not be surprised if this horse ends up hitting the board. They've
only paid $1.25 million for this horse.
Wow.
So definitely thought highly of him since they bought him at the Fasig-Tipton August sale in 2022.
Is he named after the Rams head coach?
Maybe.
I don't know.
You would think.
Coach Prime versus McVeigh?
Oh, man. Who would you like as a better coach? That's a question for another day. Scatify rounds out the field for John Sadler in the West Point Thoroughbreds. Broke his maiden going 6 furlongs, now steps up to a mile. Another new shooter, sort of, like a couple of others in this race that, could run a better race. Post doesn't help him at all, breaking from that far outside.
No, but I figure he's going to go regardless. Might get hung out wide. I think Stronghold's going to show some speed. McVeigh should be forward. That's, I think he'll be okay out there. He's got to keep going. Son of Justify out of a prospective mare. Perspective. You don't see many perspectives out there, but
he a perspective? Mark Cassie, maybe?
Might have been. I think of shorter distances, but then again, you probably, like you said, with the data points of not many of them being out there, West Point Thoroughbreds is going to take a shot, and this is what they're doing.
Jack Oxley, Mark Cassie.
There you go. You nailed it.
How about it? Can't remember what I had for lunch, but I can remember perspective. That's the Bob Lewis field. Let's go down to Oaklawn.
So who you got in there, though?
I'm on Stronghold. Okay,
you're on Stronghold. Yeah. I'm kind of Coach Prime and Better Than Gold.
I like that. Let's go down to Oaklawn for the
that short price favorite right in the eye.
Yeah, here we go. Both of us do, and we're gonna probably be silly talking about this on Monday, but at least, hey, why not? We gave it a shot. The rescheduled Southwest down at Oaklawn, which was originally scheduled to be run last weekend, they got canceled with all sorts of inclement weather. The weather has turned down at Hot Springs. It's not bad down there in the mid 50s. So training has resumed. The schedules have resumed for much of these horses, and they certainly filled the entry box for this race. 12 of them signed on in the Southwest. Goes as the 11th race, 5:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Post $800,000 for the Grade 3 the Southwest.
Kind of puts the horseman in a little bit of a pickle. So going into this race, you have to think these trainers are, $800,000 is up for grabs. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Maybe this is your time, but you have to think about it. Are they shooting for it now, or are they shooting for something greater down the road? Because the next race in the Oaklawn Series comes back quickly now in 3 weeks, the February 24th Rebel. So, many of these horses are going to come back in 3 weeks' time. So I just want you to think about that when you're handicapping of whose Derby is it on Saturday?
Yeah.
And who's looking for the Derby on the first Saturday in May? And that, might help you.
And this is a good horse to start that point, breaking from the rail and Maycox Bay for Mike Stidham. Timing wise, this horse is based on at Fairgrounds, and this horse broke or won a allowance race on January the 7th. So do you wait the extra couple of weeks and run in the Risen Star, or timing wise, where they were originally planning, do you go to this race and then runs well, they go to the Louisiana Derby or the Arkansas Derby? Because I don't see Mike running back in 3 weeks with this horse, but you never know. But this is a very interesting proposition. I think the timing worked out well. Form wise, this horse ran off the screen last time out and is going to be a tough task, I think, trying to repeat that effort against some others in this field, but is the morning line favorite at 3-1.
I mean, he ran huge last time out. What was Mike Stidham's line of thinking? You look back at this horse, he debuts at Monmouth, runs second, going 6 furlongs, sends him to Parks, breaks his maiden in the slop, then takes him down to Keeneland for the 6 furlong Bowman's Mill. He's well beaten sprinting. Now he stretches him out to 2 turns, and he's beaten 12 lengths by Snead. So now you come back in the first part of January, and he finds a mile and 16th or whatever turf race that is taken off the turf. Was he hoping it would come off? Were they puzzled by this horse? Let's try him on the grass. And then next thing you know, he runs off the screen. So you might have had a bunch of turf horses in there where the quality is very suspect. And that's why he ran off to win by 10. I'm saying all this because I think I need to see it again.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I don't know if he's going to go off favorite in here. I might disagree with that. But he is definitely going to take money. He'll be forwardly placed in here. There are others that appear to be a little faster, so he may have to work out a trip from tucked down on the inside. But I'm going to take a bet against. I need to see it again.
That's how I am too. Maybe the Lasix in that allowance race he was able to benefit from that. But there's a lot of things that he needs to repeat. Speed figure wise, he ran a 94 Brisnet speed rating in that off the turf race. But again, I just need to see it again, as Darren does. Number 2 is Charleston for Jinx Fires. Jinx Fires just keeps on plugging away, and great to see the early 80s Jinx Fires still with a horse that they claimed for $75,000 off the Brad Cox camp. Didn't run a step last time out in the maiden special down at Oaklawn. He wheels them right back in this spot. 30-1 Harry Hernandez takes the blinkers off. Needs to get better, but I like the connections, giving the horse a shot. Why not?
Why not? Look, Jinx likes to participate. He's hoping for the next arch, right? And is Charleston that? Doesn't look like it to me on paper.
You can always reel back in another one of those main specials down there for $115,000. Why not? Magic Grant, the 3-hole, Chris Landeros, Eddie Milligan Jr., who is training most of Willis Horton Racing's horses now, used to be with Wayne Lucas. Jake Cunningham, I think, has a couple of them, but Eddie Milligan Jr. now is the conditioner for the Willis Horton Racing camp. The Springboard Mile will get talked about here in a few minutes for the next couple of horses. Ran third that day, needs to get better, I think, because I think that was a weak race.
Yeah, I agree, KK. I think it was a softer spot. that he's been competing in. The water gets much deeper. This is probably their version of the Derby, but at the same time, I don't think he's fast enough.
You've always been intrigued by the next horse, and that's Out of the Conqueror. And he was, again, in that duel in the Springboard Mile where he got the better of Glengarry turning back in distance now, and Out of the Conqueror giving it another shot. And here, 800,000 reasons to give it a shot. What do you think of Out of the Conqueror's chances against this type of field?
Well, there's a lot of pace in here, and I think he'll be, as he's shown on paper, he's shown to be forward, but he's also a grinder type where the distances don't appear to be a problem. He's still just going a mile and a 16th. I'd love to see this horse stretch out, go into the longer distances. This is not Asmussen's A-team, he's got others that are faster down at Fairgrounds. So he sends them over to Hot Springs, and Out of the Conqueror, I'm a fan of, but he's going to take some money. It's 5-1 on the morning line. He's got to be faster than he was in the Springboard Mile. He was faster prior to that. I don't think I'm going to wager on him, but I do like this horse down the road.
I give him credit for being, gutsy that day and digging in to, get the better of Glengarry. So, you can't knock a horse for showing it their guts and their heart to be able to win a horse race. Just got to be a little faster to win the horse race.
I'm down on him in the future wager at 96-1, I think it is. So I'd love to see him get better as the distances get longer.
Winstock is ineligible to garner points in this race on the road to the Kentucky Derby, being trained by Bob Baffert. Won the Low South Futurity last time out. And we've talked a couple of times on this show thinking that Winstock is not the best of the Bob Baffert camp. And we'll get a true test here in this race. How good is the competition maybe out in California now coming again to here in the Midwest to face some other horses. California's sort of on the island out there, not really getting any of the Midwest or East Coast based 3-year-olds that are competing out there. So we'll really get a test to see how good Winstock is in this race.
I find it hard to, and I think this horse will go favorite. I find it very hard for me to wager on a New York bred son of Solomini at a short price.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It's as simple as that. Now, I think this is this horse's Derby. They're going for it, and he's proven to be fast when he won the Los Alamitos Futurity. So it's go time. He's going to be probably mid-pack in here. Kyle Frey's going to have to work out a trip. He's going to want to be forward, but I think there are others that are faster, and this is a fast pace.
Yeah, this is a really fast pace, and I think it sets up perfectly for Liberal Arts, who I'm a big fan of, who's making his first start as a 3-year-old. And it just everything, between the horses based to his inside and outside that are going to go, his ability that he's proven to rate going a mile and a 16th last time out in the street sense as a 2-year-old. But again, he was able to do it as a 2-year-old. Will it translate to a 3-year-old? I'm hoping so. I'm gambling so on this race. And I think, he's the type of horse that will benefit the most of any others when this fast early pace comes to fruition.
KK, you and I are kind of on the same page, and I like this horse a lot in this spot because of the way the race is going to shape up. So many horses are going to be going to the gunning for the front, and this horse is going to rate, what's he going to be right near the back of the pack? Maybe only a horse like Magic Grant might be, further back than Liberal Arts. He's going to have to work out a trip under Christian Torres, going to have to get lucky, but I think the price is going to be right. I think they're right in here with the 8-1 morning line odds range, because there are others that I can see are a little more sexy to bettors and will take money. And Liberal Arts, people don't know much about Bobby Medina, and he can handle a decent horse.
I think the first time the word sexy has been uttered on the podcast.
Maybe you got sexy horses out there, right? I mean, there are horses that are going to take money.
Yeah, maybe he's bringing sexy back here in the Southwest. A polar opposite pace scenario is the 7-horse Carbone. We'll get to see how truly dynamic maybe the Matolis are when he's been just so impressive in his first 2 starts, both breaking his maiden at Churchill and winning a first level allowance down at Oaklawn. How long will that distance carry him here in the Southwest, especially with the hot pace? Very intrigued to find out for Carbone, but it's too much questions for me to wager on, but I'm very interested to see it.
I'm a big fan of this horse, and I think the mile and 16th might be within his scope. This is his Derby. This is his type of Derby, but the pace is not in his advantage. I mean, is Mystic Dan faster than him? Will Just Steel go as well? Now, he could get caught, on the inside of a 3 wide pace scenario going into that first turn. If Ricardo is able to maybe take back and there's separation between the second and the first and second flight, and he's able to swing on the outside and maybe stalk just a little bit, I'd be okay. But it's asking a lot. I think this horse is going to take more money than the 9-2 morning line suggests. I'm a big fan of this horse. I'd love to pick him on top, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that highly of him going this type of distance. Mile to 16 should be just fine. Should be fine. But the pace scenario is a little dicey for me at short price.
I agree. I think it should be fine, but if he got the same setup that he got last time out in that allowance race, and he's not going to get the same setup, I think, in this race. I tried to like Common Defense, who breaks from post number 8. And Julian Leparoux, Kenny McPeak always team up. He's one of Kenny McPeak's top riders, along with Brian Hernandez Jr., who gets into this field, who ships in from Fairgrounds to ride Mystic Dan. This horse just needs to get faster to me, and there's just other horses that I think will get the right pace scenario that are faster, like Liberal Arts, that has proven to be faster. So even though he's going to get a great pace scenario, he's not fast enough yet.
Yeah, but maybe that's the type of horse that could stumble into second or third at a very big price. Yeah, he's a son of Caricante out of a Street Cry mare. I would think more turf down the road, but obviously you're going to try dirt as a 3-year-old, because that's just what we do here in America.
Why not? Yeah,
turf is the alternative route.
Yeah,
for many. So yeah, the pace scenario does help this horse. Maybe he does get faster with a quick early pace.
Linebacker for the Jordan Blair and Novogratz Racing Stables team screams sprint to me, but they're giving this horse a shot. And I saw a video of this horse schooling in the Oaklawn paddock yesterday. Could not look physically any better.
Looked like a linebacker?
Looked like a linebacker. I mean, the horse looked great, and I'm a big fan of Jordan Blair. He runs a great program both here and his first time that he's stabling horses down at Oaklawn on his own. Adds blinkers, just screams sprint to me with the jump start on the bottom side.
Yeah, probably right, KK. We'll get the pace scenario, though. Should be racing in mid-pack.
And Mystic Dan, who we talked a little bit about, also probably screams a little sprint, being by Golden Sense. Brian Hernandez Jr. comes in town to ride. If this horse shows some forward pace like he did in his other starts, maybe he gets a little bit brave, but has to show a different type of dynamic, I think, than he showed in the last 2 starts.
Probably going to get the same pace pressure like he did last time out in the Smarty Jones. And he faded, was beaten 3 1/4 lengths last time out. I expect the same fade on Saturday.
Wayne can still train, and Just Steel looks to be his top Derby contender at this stage.
Love it.
And this horse has done a little bit of everything. He's sprinted going 5.5. He's stretched out last time out to finish second in the Smarty Jones, going 1 mile and a 16th, ran a bang up race that day. I think he could get a pretty solid pace scenario in this race if he, is in that first flight of horses. He's danced a lot of dances already, Darren.
Yeah, he's danced. This will be his 9th race under his belt. And Wayne likes to participate and definitely be a part of the 3-year-old series. Any horse from the 8-hole out is at a disadvantage down at Oaklawn with that short run into the first turn. He's going to go. Okay. He's going to be in that mix with Carbone, probably Mystic Dan and Just Steel. He showed the ability to keep going. I'm a fan of this horse. He'll be a price, but the pace is up against it.
Awesome Road breaks from the 12-hole and was cross-entered in Friday's Leonidas Stakes. It sounds like the connections are keeping him here at Oaklawn to run in the Southwest, and he's been sort of iffy in multiple spots, and I like them giving him a shot to, try and get back into form, because he was a favorite in that Kentucky Jockey Club. He was, the betting choice that day. And it's just, can he return to what the general public thought of his maiden debut down at Ellis Park when he won impressively that day?
Well, Andy was 53-1 in pool 2 of the Kentucky Derby future wager, but you're right. It seems like the connections are trying to figure out where he belongs. Do they keep him on the dirt? Do they find the right spot on the dirt? I don't think that they're happy. They drew post 12. He's probably in the second flight of horses off the speed, but he still might be hung, 3 wide in that, maybe 4 wide in that second flight of horses. They were toying with the idea of running him in the synthetic at Turfway. Do they go the route of the Jeff Ruby Stakes? Do they maybe even just try the turf and maybe just say, hey, look, this is an American turf type horse? I don't know. I think they're trying to figure it out. And after drawing post 12, they probably threw up in their mouths a little bit, right? I mean, because that's not, you might not get your answer, but we'll find out what Awesome Road's made of. He'll probably take action because he's trained by Brad Cox and will be ridden by Florent Giroux. Yeah, we'll find out about him.
$600,000 purchase, no skinny there, owned in partnership with Donegal Racing as well. That's the field for the Southwest Stakes, rescheduled again, goes as 5:50 p.m. Eastern Time, race number 11. Are you Liberal Arts, your top guy, as I am?
Yeah, Liberal Arts. I think I think my favorite horse in the race that I'm most excited about, who's probably more of a Pat Day mile horse, is Carbone. Which, by the way, that's Mexican charcoal.
Yeah.
And but Liberal Arts, I'm a fan of. I think the pace is going to work out for him. I'd still like to see Otto the Conqueror take a step forward. Those are and then I'd love to see Lucas in the mix.
Right.
But again, from a pace standpoint, Liberal Arts is where I would lean.
What a show. I mean,
and we've got other races.
It's crazy.
There's other races to look at.
We've been 67 minutes so far on this show, and then there's lots more too this weekend.
On Saturday at Gulfstream Park, the 4th race is a maiden special weight. They go a mile of 16th on the all weather. Why do I bring that up? Just watch the race. Because 4 weeks later is the March 2nd Battaglia up at Turfway. So you never know. You might see a participant that comes up there to Northern Kentucky and invade. And I'm going in post-time order, thanks to my Brisnet.com past performances.
I really threw you for a loop when I was going sort of East Coast, West Coast.
You
back
did.
To the Midwest.
It was out of order. It was out of my order. I'm certain. Where's this race? Oaklawn Park, race 4 on Saturday. Goes off at 2:00. You have a 6 furlong maiden special weight. Mr. Phillip is a heavy 9-5 favorite for Diodoro. Probably more Pat Day mile type of horses if you're going 6 furlongs this time of year. I'm really looking forward to race 6 at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. The first level allowance for 3-year-olds going a mile. It is a 1-turn mile. Keep that in mind. There are 3 horses in here that we had in pool 3 of the Kentucky Derby future wager. Born Noble, runaway winner of his debut for Todd Pletcher, took some money at 41-1 in the pool 3. He gets tested against winners for the first time and will be going up against Ari's Magic, who I was a big fan of his debut win under Oyson Murphy down at Tampa Bay Downs. The race didn't come back that fast, but it was just very impressive. We talked about Christophe Clement having horses on the trail. Good Magic is the sire here out of Ari the Adventurer. Remember? Remember her? Anyway, I'm intrigued by this horse down the road. And you could probably see some of these horses come back in either the March 2nd Fountain of Youth, or maybe they wait an extra week and they come back in the March 9th Tampa Bay Derby. Another horse that we've had in the future wager pools that hasn't taken a whole lot of action, but we'll see what he's all about. At 129-1 in pool 3 was Merit for Safi Joseph Jr. And I'm impressed that I have been able to talk this long without a cough, because I feel it. It's almost there. But Merritt is a 10-length winner of his debut back on what would have been Breeders' Cup Day. On the not on the undercard, but down at Gulfstream Park. This is a son of mastery. We'll see how far this horse wants to go, but I think this horse is kind of a little bit of a sneaky horse. So those 3 horses in particular of that first level allowance are very intriguing. There's a maiden at Oaklawn Park, race 6, going 1 mile and a 16th. Remember, it's 3 weeks till the February 24th Rebel. Dymatic for Steve Asmussen. It has a gun runner colt in here, 5-2 favorite. Give Me Liberty for Diodoro. That's a Constitution colt who ran second last time out to Common Defense. And anyway, those are the top 2 choices in that maiden special weight. Let me see, what else do we got here? Got some filly races. We're not going to talk about the fillies just yet. We want to wait and see. Down at Tampa Bay Downs, find this interesting. Now, the maidens are only worth $53,000 down there. It's a 3-year-old going 6 furlongs. But Bill Mott has a Judd Farm first-time starter in here, Lock Barrel, that attracts the services of Javier Castellano. Now, I have not done a deep dive on the mounts of the undercard of the Holy Bull Day down at Gulfstream Park, but I do find it very intriguing that Javier Castellano forgoes his mounts at Gulfstream Park and is taking over to ride this horse in its debut. Lock Barrel. It's a Union Rags colt out of a Tappet mare. Late in the game, but might be an interesting prospect down the road.
Javier rides in the Endeavor Stakes consumer spending for Chad Brown. So
well, that explains it. Okay. That explains it.
As I just pulled up his mounts just to see if he was, at both places, and that's why he's riding in the Endeavor.
And then we have the Swale down at Gulfstream Park, 3-year-old sprinting 7 furlongs. This is more of a prep for the Pat Day Mile. And we've got a horse that I'm a big fan of, Legalized for Cherie DeVoe. The horse has been very impressive in its last 2 starts. It's a son of Constitution out of an Unbridled Song mare, and Cherie has no desire to stretch his colt out anytime soon. Believes it's a 1-turn type of horse. And it's a good spot, invades from Fairgrounds.
We wanted to use this horse in the future wager, and
basically said no.
Yeah, we blew up her phone. Ben Huffman and I both blew up her phone, and at the same time, and she was like, "No, we're sticking to 1 turn at this time." So
it's going up against Bilal for Bill Mott, who returns to shorter distances, as does Risk It for Steve Asmussen. This horse was 65-1 in Pool 2 of the Kentucky Derby future wager, and disappointed in the Kentucky Jockey Club, getting beat 8 3/4 lengths. Came back in the Gun Runner, was beaten 15 lengths, and Steve's gone on record saying, "Look, he thinks he's a very talented colt, but he just wants to go 1 turn." So you're going to get that 1 turn opportunity. So those are some of the races. We've also got the Forward Gal and the Honeybee, the Martha Washington, which is a prep for the Honeybee on the road to the Kentucky Oaks. But some very good racing across the action, especially in the 3-year-old department, coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, on Friday, too, you tune into the Leonidas Stakes at Turfway Park, which will be a prep for the Battaglia Memorial, the rescheduled Leonidas Stakes featuring Vote No for the Bill Morey camp. Bill has said that he's aiming for the Jeff Ruby Stakes for this one. Also have a new shooter, an Epic Ride, who I needed on debut for $40,000 to hit a pick 4. He finished second, and then came back and broke his maiden at 9-1. Didn't get down that day. So that's the story of Epic Ride and me, who will be in the Leonidas Stakes on Friday.
I will think that horse is going to gallop by open lengths just to keep rubbing salt in your wound.
I mean, it was so painful that night. The last race at Turfway, and $40,000, and a neck rallied on the inside. He's turned out to be a nice horse for the John Ennis camp. So that's Friday night at Turfway. That was a solid hash out, Darren. I mean, we really need to get a good review for this show today.
I think it was a good. We pointed out that a lot of horses need to get faster.
Yes.
We're good at that.
That's our new drinking game. This horse needs to get faster.
We learned that I don't think anybody can beat Fierceness other than himself.
Mm-hmm.
We're both taking stands against Nisos out west. And the other races are just kind of up for grabs.
And we used the term sexy back on inside the Kentucky Derby. So you know what's going to happen on Monday. We're going to talk about Nisos running off the screen, Fiercenet's going to get upset, and Liberal Arts just not turning out to who we thought he was.
Welcome to horse racing, folks.
It'll be a fun show. Thanks again to Woodford Reserve. 200 flavor notes in every sip. Woodford Reserve is a spectacle for the senses and also the presenting partner here for the Kentucky Derby. $5 million on the line on the first Saturday in May, presented by Woodford Reserve. We'll be back on Monday to recap everything, right?
Yeah, and as KK suggested earlier, please subscribe, tell your friends. We're available on every platform possible for podcasts. Give us a rating of 5 stars for our 4-star performance.
I like that. We'll be back again on Monday. Best of luck this weekend. Lots of promos over at twinspires.com to get you in the mood for this weekend's Road to the Kentucky Derby. Be sure to opt in on the twinspires.com app. Until then, best of luck this weekend.